So last story here, this one kind of came in at the last minute, so I got to go back to my notes here. This was a really interesting one from Gallup. Yeah, there's a couple of interesting facts, 4 interesting facts that that Gallup brought us, and I picked them up this morning. Pretty interesting. So I'll get my spectacles on here. So 4 little details brought to us by Gallup. Compared to decades past, today's workforce is defined by more flexible workspaces. 74% of employees have the ability to move to different areas or to do move to different areas in order to do their work. So, and in fact, in some offices, in some workspaces, employees don't even, I think this might be Lego, some of their employees don't even have office spaces. There are just random places spread about the headquarters where they take their laptops, they all have laptops, and they just find a place where they want to work, and they sit down, they connect to the Wi-Fi, and they start working. So there's more and more of that type of thing, these flexible workspaces that are going on. More flexible work time. 52% of employees say they have some choice over where they work, and this could mean alternate. This can mean alternate fixed hours, let's say, 410s, 312s in some cases, where you have fixed hours, but they're maybe different from one group of employees to another employees. Or maybe there's just core hours where these employees need to work, and they have some flexibility in terms of when they come in and when they leave. So flexible time is something that's been around for a while, but we're seeing more and more of it in the workplace. Another thing, remote working. 43% of employees work away from home at least some of the time. And finally, more matrixed teams. About 84%, this is an astounding number, 84% of employees are matrixed to some extent. And if you haven't heard what matrix employment or matrix management is, this is where your employees can have different bosses depending on their tasks. So on one project, their boss might be from this department. On another project, their boss might be from this department. Or they may be working on a project and have 2 bosses depending on what part of the project they are working on at the moment. So we're seeing more now. What this means, says Hickman and Pendle, is that teams make more decisions without approval from above. This means that non-managers have to act more like leaders and also see the employees have to see the big picture in the same way that they would, that the CEO of the company would do. And we talked earlier about distributed manufacturing and distributed software. This, in a sense, you could think of as distributed management, where the management is actually distributed out to the individual employees. They're kind of their own bosses. So more and more, say the authors, the organizations are looking for employees who can make independent decisions with confidence and problem solve with different peer groups and do all that, handle workload and relationships and so forth on their own with very little supervision. In other words, they're going to be their own boss, and they're going to do it for themselves what used to be done by their managers, right? So this is quite a shift, I think, and one that I think actually is well handled by, and here's that term again, sorry, millennials. And the reason I believe that is this type of workspace, this type of group really is more of a social or hive type activity where everybody has their own job, they know what they're supposed to do, they don't have to be told, they just go out and do it, and they come together and they meet socially, instant messaging or phone calls or email, chat, whatever it takes, just to keep in contact with each other in order to keep refreshing themselves in terms of keeping them on track in terms of what they need to be doing. So I think this is something that's kind of more something that works a little bit more easier for a newer workforce than it does for a lot of people who may have been in a managed workforce for most of their life. It's kind of a different way of thinking. But the authors ask, what happens if people have more autonomy at work? Well, there's kind of 2 things that happen. One is good, one isn't so great. And the first is empirical evidence, say the author, shows a correlation between increased performance and engagement as well as more sensitivity to failure. So think about that. These autonomous employees are finding it easier to get more done and to accomplish more and to perform better. But on the flip side of it, they're more attuned to the fact that it's all on their shoulders. They're doing their job. They can't blame it on a manager, on a coworker. It's all them, right? So if something goes wrong, it's all on them to fix it, and they feel more responsibility. So more disappointment if plans don't go the way they think they should, and that happens in every workplace. So the manager kind of takes on a different role. This has caused a shift in the workplace, and it alters what employees need from their managers, from their organizational manager, the manager that shows up on the org chart. And you've got to remember, I mentioned this distributed management idea. Hickman and Pendel actually refer to it as, what do they call it, decentralized management. Instead of having one manager, which is kind of the traditional way, you have, let's call it subject matter experts that are managers. So you have a manager that is responsible for technical problems, technical expert. You have another manager which is maybe deals with interpersonal relationships, and maybe another one that's a career coach. So that as employees who are working on their own, being their own manager, kind of dictating how they work, they still have people they can go to that can give them advice on either technical advice or how to deal with workplace stress, how to deal with other employees. Kind of the same thing that you might get from your traditional manager if you had one, but now you don't necessarily. Now this doesn't mean that you get rid of managers completely, and the authors really want to say that you still need your traditional manager, if for no other reason than legal reasons. I mean, you still need to have, sometimes you need disciplinary action. You might need people who need to be fired. You might need to hire more people, and so forth. And so you need a traditional manager that will handle those tasks. And like I said, some of that's for human resources and legal reasons as well. But the idea here is that managers step in when they're needed, and they kind of stay in the background, a little bit invisible when they're not needed. And so this is really kind of a completely different shift. Now, according to Hicknell and Pendel, the old rules of management no longer apply, and that means leaders must reinvent management for more autonomous workforce of the future. So this is what you can expect to see coming to a workplace near you.